are watching KUTV Primetime News with Mutegi K. Martin. We're glad you're still watching KUTV Primetime News, and we are back with the conversation I promised you before going for a break, a conversation about the progress of our young people. And here at KUTV, we are passionate about matters affecting the young people, and in the recent past, we have seen a number of things that are alarming. I'm speaking about injustices against the youth that we have aired in our media outlets. Also, the electioneering period is here with us early enough, and the politicians are already moving around establishing their manifestos, using the young people to drum up support for them. Yet the problems facing these same youth cannot be handled early enough. These quote-unquote biggies are not drumming up support for the progress of the young people. Is it time for the young nation to do something concrete for themselves? For once. Lastly, last week on the 12th of August, we celebrated International Youth Day, an annual celebration of the strides our youth are making while discussing the problems that they continue to face. And this year's theme being Transforming Food Systems, Youth Innovation for Human and Planetary Health. It was widely agreed that the young people need to be given a seat at the table. And I'm talking about the decision-making and situation-changing table. We're now joined by Raphael Obonyo, public policy analyst, youth advocate and expert, and the convener of the Youth Congress, to give us a perspective on the youth progress such as you have never seen before here at KUTV Primetime News. Karibu sana Bwana Obonyo, if you can hear me.
Thank you so much, Mutegi. Nice to be back on KUTV, and quite excited to be here and to engage in this conversation. Happy to engage, and you guys are doing amazing work. Thank you.
All right, it's good to see you as well. It's been a minute, and let's kick this off with backtracking from the International Youth Day that we had last week, and the theme being transforming the food systems. And the question is, what is the place of the young people in transforming these food systems? Do the youth have capacity enough to pull some of these big projects and push them to completion?
Thank you so very much, Mutegi. This year's International Youth Day was focusing on basically issues of transformation of the food systems, and basically looking at sustainability of food systems, looking at food security, but most importantly, looking at the question of youth and innovation, and how we can harness youth innovation to ensure food sustainability and food security. And actually, there is almost a universal agreement that there cannot be a transformation of food systems, sustainability of food systems, and food security without ensuring meaningful inclusion of youth. And what does that basically mean? That means that we need to tap into the creativity of young people. We need to tap into the energies of young people. We need to tap into the sheer numbers of young people and bring them at the center of food transformation and food production. And this basically means that we need to ensure that sectors like agriculture is not just a place for the old guards. Like if you look at Kenya, for example, the average age of a farmer in Kenya is 70 years. And that means that there are very few young people in that particular space. And if you're talking about food production, that is actually agriculture. And if young people are not there, it means that we are not guaranteed of food security, because it's a matter of time before these people who are 70 years and above exit the stage. Who is going to produce food for us? So it is very, very important that we look at how do we make agriculture cool for young people? How do we ensure that we create opportunities within the value chain, not just in terms of cultivating land? How do you make sure the opportunities for young people in the value chain to engage in production of food? How do you make sure that young people have access to land? How do you make sure young people have access to capital and finances that they require to be able to produce food? How do you ensure that young people have access to market? How do you ensure that young people have the skills and capacity that they need to be able to engage in food production. So this year's theme was trying to shed light on, spotlight on that, on how we can harness youth innovation, youth creativity in terms of ensuring transformation of food systems, sustainability, but also food security.
All right, and I know you are in a number of organizations that deal directly with the youth and how to improve their welfare. We shall be getting to that as we end the conversation. But first, some limiting factors here, and I want to talk about some of the factors that have been facing our youth, and of course, looking at some of the things that have been happening recently, the extrajudicial killings and harassment of all kinds of manner that are targeting our young people. Should the youth be silent about these matters? And if not, what should they be doing? Do they have the power to go out there and change things?
First of all, it's quite unfortunate what young people are facing. In addition to, the many other problems, unemployment, high cost of living, and many other challenges that youth are facing, there are also systemic injustices, like what we've seen, police brutality, police killings, which is quite unfortunate, targeting young people, on pretext that, young people are not obeying laws, or young people are operating outside the required time after curfew, which is quite unfortunate. Laws are meant to facilitate people's development, people's well-being. Laws are not meant to cause more injustice on people who are already overwhelmed and burdened. So, it's quite unfortunate, like the case of the two young people who are killed by police in Embu. Recently, we've seen a number of cases in informal settlements like Mathare, Korogosho, Kibra, and many, many other places. And so I think it's time to ensure that we have a police service that is accountable, it's responsive, but it's also responsible. And so young people, that is on the part of the police. But for young people, I think we cannot afford to be quiet. Young people should speak up. Young people should refuse to suffer in silence. Young people should refuse to be victims of police violence. And I want to just go back to what one of the civil rights movement icons once said. The late John Lewis in the United States once said that if you see something that is not fair, is not just, is not right, do not keep quiet. Speak up. Say something, do something. We must take action. And action means we must speak and protest against such kind of violation. So we cannot be quiet. We cannot suffer in silence. Young people have a responsibility to stand up and speak up and say no to this kind of injustices.
And talking about standing up and speaking up, what is the place of the young people in Kenyan leadership today? And bearing in mind that according to a few statistics here, according to the IEBC, a staggering 9.3 million voters who will be voters now this particular coming elections, who are not eligible to vote or did not register in the 2017 general elections, who will be viable to vote in this 2022 general elections. And of course, this is big. And these young people, can they make or break, and can they also choose their own leaders also, so that we have a better voice in the country?
Thank you, Mutegi. First is that Kenya is a very youthful country, like many countries in Africa. Over 70% of Kenya's population is below age 35. If we look at the youth demographic, it's about 40% of the population. That is in terms of the population. If we look at in terms of voters, registered voters, young people are a significant segment of voters in this country. And now in 2022, the coming elections, we have a significantly large number of young people who will be joining that voters' roll. It is said, like you've rightly reported, that we'll have an additional 9.3 million, a majority of them young people who will be joining the voters' roll. What does that mean? That basically means that just by the sheer numbers, youth have the power to transform the leadership of this country. Youth have power to put and elect leaders who have vision, who have values, who are responsible, who are responsive, leaders who are going to tackle the challenges we are facing as a society, high cost of living, unemployment, largely affecting young people, indignifying healthcare system, and in exclusion, inequalities, corruption, and all these things. So young people have the power. So we cannot continue sitting on the touchline and complaining about the challenges. Yet we have one very important thing. The power to vote. It is said that the biggest challenge, not the challenge, the biggest office and the most powerful and strongest office in any democracy is that of citizens. And why do they say that? It's because citizens have the power to vote. We can, just by the power of our vote, decide who is going to lead us in the next couple of years. And so we should not look at elections as an event. We should look at an election as a continuous process and an opportunity to put in place good leaders, an opportunity to shape the future that we want, an opportunity to decide what we want with our lives, so that if we want to have better lives, then we have to. That starts at election. It does not end at election. It starts at the ballot box. And so the numbers that we have will count for nothing if, first of all, young people do not register to vote. Second, if young people do not show up to vote. And third, if young people do not elect the right leaders, our numbers will count for nothing. In fact, someone jokes that even elephants have numbers, even trees have numbers, but the good story ends there. So young people cannot just rely and be proud of their numbers. Young people must put those numbers into very good use. And so election cannot be an event. And we have the glorious opportunity and duty to vote, to register to vote and to vote. And that means to shape our future.
Amazing. That said, and I asked this question knowing that you're on the ground and in touch with many, many young transformative leaders. Do you have these young transformative leaders gearing up and, bracing up and getting ready to vie for those elective posts in the country?
Yes, we have quite a number. Mutegi, across the world, leaders are becoming younger and younger. Mm-hmm. And across the continent, our continent, Africa, leaders are becoming younger and younger. I've seen, for example, in Namibia, younger people being running for office, younger people being appointed. I saw just recently someone 23-year-old was appointed to be a deputy minister in Namibia. In the elections that were concluded just recently in Zambia, a number of young people came up to vote. I saw a young person who is in his late 20s was elected a mayor in Zambia. It basically means that leaders are becoming younger and younger and younger. Mm-hmm. And so if we look at Kenya, it's the same case. Many more young people are coming up to run for office. At the moment, currently, if we look at our National Assembly, we have almost 23% of the people in the of leaders in the National Assembly are young people, the youngest in the history of our country. If we look at our Senate, it is billed as one of the youngest Senates on the continent. If we look at county assemblies, over 40% of the people in the county assembly are below age 35. And that means that young people are no longer followers. Young people are no longer leaders of tomorrow. Young people are leaders of today, and they're stepping up to that challenge. The question is, how do we get young people who beyond age have vision, have values, who beyond age are responsible and responsive to the needs and concerns of young people? And so that is extremely important. So we must move now beyond numbers, just saying, look, we want to elect young people, and now ask ourselves, how do we elect young people who are going to make a difference, young people who are going to make an impact, young people who are concerned about the needs and challenges that are facing young people. But just back to your question, is that many young people are coming up to vote, and that is encouraging. For me, that is extremely encouraging.
All right, thank you. Now, as we move on, the status of the young people, even as they continue to vote and vie and do all those sorts of things, is really important. And another statistics here from Commonwealth Global Youth Development Index showing that, according to the status of the young people in the world, which of course is based on 181 countries, Kenya is ranked 139th. That is a position we probably never thought we were in. Personally, never thought we were in such a position. And what are some of the factors that might have put us in this particular position, and how can we actually go even higher?
You know, there's that reggae song that asks, is there anything to smile about? Certainly, with this kind of results, it means that there's nothing to smile about. 139 out of 181 is not very good results. That's poor performance. Let me start there and say that truly that shows that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. You know how a lecturer can write for you below average or pull up your socks, so you need to do something? That is exactly what Commonwealth is telling Kenya based on the Global Youth Development Index. And let me just talk a little bit about the Global Youth Development Index. This is an index that is done every year. And it looks at a couple of, first of all, it ranks countries between 0.0 and 1, and Kenya scored 0.577, and that, like I say, it means that we are just slightly above average. So it means that there's a lot that needs to be done. And they look at a couple of areas. They look at youth in terms of education. What is the country doing in terms of ensuring access, availability, and affordability of education for youth? And then they look at employment. First of all, let's look at education. It basically means that there are still many young people who are not able to access education in the country. It basically means that the quality of education is not enabling young people to live quality lives, dignified lives in Kenya. It also looks at the issue of employment. How are young people able to access employment opportunities? Of course, we know our country, while youth are over 75% of the population is below age 35, we also have so many young people who are unemployed. 70% of jobless people in the country are actually young people. And now we even have a bigger problem, educated but jobless youth in the country. And that means that Kenya is not performing very well when it comes to ensuring employment opportunities for young people. There's also the bit on health. They also look at how is healthcare accessible to young people, affordable to young people, available to young people, and Kenya ranked poorly in that. Then there's the question of equality and inclusion. Also, that is a key area. Many young people remain excluded from decision making, excluded from governance, excluded from development. And then there's the bit on the issue of peace and security, and we just talked about the issue of police killings in the country. And lastly, the index also looks at the issue of political and civic participation. How are we putting in place mechanisms that ensure youth participation in political and civic processes? And so I just want to emphasize that we must realize as a country that the greatest asset that we have are actually young people. And we must ensure that we utilize this asset. We must ensure that we facilitate this asset. We must ensure that we enable this asset. Young people must be a priority for our country. Young people must be at the center of development. Young people must be at the decision-making table. Young people cannot be seen as people in the waiting room, cannot be seen as the other. Young people must be seen as the must be enabled to take part as equal members of the society, whether it is in the political process, civic processes, development, governance, decision making. If we really want to improve, if we want to be on the top of the chart like Singapore, that is topping the list this time, Slovenia, Malta, and Norway, and other countries that are doing very well, we must put young people at the center. We must prioritize young people. We must ensure that programs and interventions that are put in place, like Youth Enterprise Fund, Uwezo Fund, are really addressing the needs and concerns of young people. We must listen to the young people. We must not see young people as tokens. We must see young people as important members of our society. That is the only way we are going to improve, but not just in terms of the index. That is the only way we are going to make progress as a country. Young people must be a priority and they must be at the center.
Amazing. And just before we speak about the Youth Congress as we wind up, something that you have mentioned more than twice, maybe even more than 5 times already, about inclusion of young people. And Secretary General of United Nations, Antonio Guterres, was also keen to mention that the young people deserve a seat in the table. And maybe a young person is watching tonight and wondering, where is this table? Maybe you can point us, before we wind up this conversation, some of the avenues where young people can sit and make decisions. Even some of the platforms, if you can mention them by name, that would be very helpful.
I mean, I think there are many platforms. First of all, let me say this before I point out the platforms. One is that exclusion of young people is misconstrued, or sometimes we have misconception that by excluding young people, it is only young people who suffer. That is not necessarily true. By excluding young people, the society suffers because young people are not inadequate because they lack experience, because that is the pretext that we use. When we exclude young people, we also lose out on some of the important ingredients that young people bring on board: creativity, energy, dynamism, enthusiasm, fresh ideas, things that we can get from young people. When we exclude them, we lose out as a society. And it is said that a society that fails to tap into the energies, creativity, talent, dynamism, enthusiasm of young people will be left behind. So as a society, we can't move without harnessing all these very important elements from young people. Mm-hmm. Second is on the decision-making table. We must ensure that young people are at the decision-making table. What are these decision-making tables? We have so many of them. We have, for example, now in political space, we have things like, we have spaces like county assemblies. Make sure that young people are there. We have National Assembly. Make sure young people are there. We have the Senate. Make sure young people are there. We have state corporations. Make sure young people are there. We have the various agencies and institutions that have been set. It is important to have young people there. That is in terms of government. In terms of development, it's the same thing. We must ensure that young people are accorded space and opportunities in our development initiatives, development space. Private sector, the same thing. We cannot continue excluding young people simply because on the pretext that they lack experience. Companies that are doing very well, agencies that are doing very well, are agencies that have been able to tap into the energies and creativities of young people. And to young people, make sure that you are part of the decision-making table. If you get a seat at the decision-making table, don't just warm the seat. Make it count that you are at the decision-making table. Represent the youth. Present issues and challenges affecting the youth and the larger populace. Join various initiatives to be able to amplify your voices and our voices. There are initiatives like, the National Youth Council. Be part of it. There is the Youth Congress. Be part of it. There are various youth-serving organizations, Youth Agenda, Emerging Leaders Foundation, and many others. Join this initiative so that you can contribute meaningfully towards the development and advancement of the society. So there are plenty of spaces and platforms through which young people can contribute to the development of the country. And I consider most of those decision-making tables. And lastly, they normally say, Mutegi, that if they don't give you a seat at the decision-making table, come with your folded chair, just come with your seat. Okay. Or if they even say these days that remove that table and make sure now there's no table so that everyone can belong.
All right. Talking about that, as we wind up, let's talk about the one thing that we haven't talked about, the Youth Congress. And you launched an initiative that is for provision of support for the young people. And as you've mentioned, unemployment is really key when it comes to challenges facing the young people. And tonight, as convener, no other better person to speak about the Youth Congress and what you're doing. What can we expect from the Youth Congress? And what is the Youth Congress already doing to help the youth become better and build a better future for the country and for the world?
I think for us, we are just emphasizing the bit that young people should not be in the waiting room. Young people must be active participants. Young people must exercise their civic duty. Young people must take up their glorious role and responsibility and run for office. That young people are not just followers. They say if youth are not too young to vote, then they're not too young to run for office. So we are just encouraging young people out there that if you cannot see the change that you're looking for, you are the change. Throw yourself in the arena. We cannot just be on the touchline. We cannot just be cheerleaders. We cannot just be briefcase carriers. We cannot just be people who are just chanting slogans outside. Mm-hmm. We must be in the arena because we need youth representation at the decision-making tables. And so what are we doing? We've come up with an initiative called the Youth Elect. And like I did say, across the world, young people leaders are becoming younger and younger. On the continent, young people are becoming young. Leaders are becoming younger and younger. In our country, leaders are becoming younger and younger. Youth should not be in the waiting room. Youth should come out and vie for this position, not just because of age, not just because they are young, but because they have a vision, because they have values, because there's change that they desire. There's a Kenya that they want. So young people must come out and say, this is the vision that we have. These are the values we espouse. This is the change that we want to see. We want to see an inclusive Kenya. We want to see a sustainable Kenya. We want to see politicians, political leaders, and people who are entrusted with responsibility addressing the needs and concerns of young people. And so what will we be doing? We'll be facilitating young people who are come out to vie for office. Mm-hmm. We know there are many challenges, there are many odds against them, but we want to encourage them. We will try and provide the kind of support that they need, whether it is in terms of helping them to mobilize support, in terms of mobilizing voters, whether it is in terms of helping them to mobilize resources. We will be encouraging that because truly, Mutegi, we believe that young people are not leaders of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Young people are the leaders and the change that we've been waiting for. And so if you're a young person out there and you are wondering if you should or you shouldn't vie, just to encourage you that the time is now. You are the change that your community has been waiting for. You are the change that this country has been waiting for. Offer yourself. Don't just look at what you lack, because many young people say, oh, we do not have resources to vie. We should do not. That is just one bit. Now we have, we have voters who are giving a chance to leaders who are not necessarily moneyed. We saw in Meru, Paul was elected at age 23. He didn't have resources. Across the country, we have many of those examples. So come out, don't just look at what you lack, also use what you have. And we have many platforms, many opportunities, many avenues through which we can market our candidatures. And please utilize that and reach out to the Youth Congress, reach out to us, and we will be happy to provide the necessary support, any possible support that we can provide to make sure that we have as many young people, not just vying, but winning seats. And we hope that if you have many more young people representing at the decision-making table, then the issues of young people will be a priority, will not just be on the menu, that young people will also be discussing issues that affect them, addressing issues that affect them, responding to the needs and concerns of young people.
All right, thank you so much.
All right. Mutegi, I just wanted to say the initiative is called Youth Elect. Elect. Amazing. Youth Elect youth.
All right, and our head of news, Florence Dongo, says hi to you this particular evening, and thank you so much for coming through for our conversation tonight.
I deeply appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to be on KUTV. I believe it's the best channel for young people, and so keep up the good work, and young people should keep tuned on KUTV. Thank you so very much.
All right, amazing. That is Rafael Obonyo, public policy analyst, youth advocate and expert, and convener of the Youth Congress, here to talk about so many things that are happening in the country, including Youth Elect. You want to go out and check it and see how you can benefit as a young person. With that, we take a short break. We'll be right back with more. Keep it here.